And what we're going to do is touch base here and get to know some rural physicians, and also we have a rural resident here today. And just kind of hear more about their practice and training in a rural area, practice in a rural area, and hear some advice on how to foster and keep that rural interest alive, or move that forward. So I'm actually going to turn it over to each of you and have you introduce yourself, get started, tell us a little about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit of your education. And we do have a microphone here, so.
My name's Mike Walters. I am an emergency physician from Eau Claire, so if there's any Eau Claire folks. All right, there you go. I did not train in a rural residency. There really aren't any in emergency medicine. So I'll kind of give so I went to MCW, graduated a long time ago. Yeah, I say county hospital is still there. That gives you any indication. Most of you that are there now have no idea what I'm talking about. So I trained in Indianapolis at a facility called Methodist, which was a large 1,000-bed hospital, 100,000 patient a year ED. But at the time, the interesting part of the training, though, was that we were trained to take care of anything, anytime, anywhere kind of a mentality. So the expectation was that when you left, you could practice anywhere. And so then I did 3 years in the Air Force. I was down in Mississippi as an emergency physician. Then I came back to Wisconsin. I practiced for 12 years at the University of Wisconsin as an emergency physician there. And then I've been 6 years at Divine Savior in Portage, which some may not consider rural, but you should. And one of the things that really solidified my decision to return to kind of community practice or rural practices, I felt like when I was practicing at the University of Wisconsin that I wasn't using my full skill set as an emergency physician. And now going back to a practice in that environment, I feel like I'm using all the things that I was trained to do because of the fact that, there is not a vascular surgeon there. There is not a right-hand surgeon there. There's not a left-hand surgeon there some days. And so it really challenges you to draw upon your skill set, your knowledge base, and sometimes your improvisational skills and your, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, confidence in yourself, because you are many times the only person there that can take care of somebody. And so it's really kind of rejuvenated my career. I started there when I was, I've been practicing already for about 15 years, and so it was good to kind of go back and kind of get back to your roots. So I'll pass it along. I can't really pass it.
Check.
Ooh, this one. Okay.
And I'm going to turn it down just a little.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm Rachel Hardline. I'm a family doc and I currently practice in Dodgeville, but I grew up in Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia. I went to college there and I did my medical school at Eastern Virginia, which is out on the coast. And then I moved to Wisconsin for residency. I did my residency at Baraboo, which is like a 1-2 training track. So you do your first year in Madison, you get kind of a high volume experience, and then you move out to the rural setting and get the experience of practicing in a rural hospital. And after residency, we thought we were going to move further west, and we're like looking at Montana and Wyoming and Idaho, and then decided a change of pace and kind of stick around in Wisconsin, and ended up in Dodgeville. And so it's a critical access hospital there. I practice inpatient medicine still. I do OB and C-sections, and then my clinics are probably 20 minutes away from the hospital, so I'm in a couple clinics outside of town.
Yeah, so my name is Casey. I am a Baraboo, or PGY3 at the Baraboo Rural Training Track. I actually grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I'm from the state of Oregon. I went to Oregon Health and Science, Oregon, by the way, Oregon. All right, anyway. I went to Oregon Health and Science University. Before that, I was an undergrad at Reed College, if anybody knows where that is, but nobody does. Ooh, yeah. Oh, what? I'll have to touch base later. In any case, I did a rural rotation in southeastern Oregon in a place called Burns, which recently made famous by some gentleman who took over a small, for those of you who have paid attention to the news a while ago. This is before I trained there, but I fell in love with rural medicine at that point and ended up matching in Baraboo, which is just near and dear to my heart. It's one of the best places to train in the country, so that's how it brought me out here.
My name is Eric Stater, and I practice in Lancaster, Wisconsin, which is down in the southwest corner of the state. I grew up in Plymouth, on the east side of the state, and did my residency training in Mason City, Iowa, which is a larger hospital in a small town, and came to Lancaster a little over 15 years ago. I have a small group of 4 family doctors with human levels, and we're at a rural hospital there where we work, and ours is a full spectrum practice. Much like Rachel's probably, we do our OB and several of us do C-sections and our inpatient care. We used to do a lot of our emergency as work, but as practices grew busier, we now have several people that do that full-time employed at the hospital. But another small town, I've been there the whole 15 years, and people ask me why I haven't gone somewhere else or done something different, and I still like what I'm doing. In fact, I think I like it more every year. So.
I want to thank you all for being here to represent the medical staff of Columbus Community Hospital. I'm Bruce Krause. I'm a general internal medicine physician in this community since 1978, so I've had my entire career here coming out of my residency. I want to go back just a little bit. I'm a Wisconsin farm boy. I don't mind saying that. I grew up on the traditional Wisconsin dairy farm in the 1950s and 60s, and I always told my kids they were born one generation too late because there was nothing like that experience when I look back on it. Taught me so many life values, discipline, work ethic, those types of things, which I think allowed me to get, through the training that you all are actually working on yourself right now. I also just want to make a comment about education and so forth. I'm probably the only person in the room who went to a one-room schoolhouse. Anybody go to a one-room schoolhouse? So I started out with a one-room schoolhouse, and I had a teacher that I have to mention, Miss Martin, who was my teacher for 5 of the next 8 years. And but for that lady, I think my education might have gone a different direction. My dad had an 8th grade education. My mother got through high school, and I was the first member of either side of my family who got a college education. I look back on a high school principal and said, you're a pretty good student. You probably ought to consider taking some additional courses in sciences and math. So I was always grateful for that. I started out, I wanted to be a veterinarian, a large animal veterinarian. I grew up on a farm. And then it was a 2-year program at University of Wisconsin, River Falls, and we had an advisor by Virginia Akins, and she had national recognition for getting people into vet school. We needed a 2-year pre-vet program, and I applied to the University of Minnesota and got accepted. But I'm saying this in part because sometime along your career, if you have it, you're going to feel something in your gut that says this doesn't feel quite right. And you might need to think about changing directions a little bit. So I went in to see Dr. Akins in my sophomore year, and I would need 2 more years to do something else to graduate. And I said, I got to talk to you. She said, oh, by the way, congratulations getting into medical school, getting into vet school. I said, that's what I need to talk to you about. She said, oh. I thought she kicked me out of the door and down the hall. I said, I don't think I want to go to vet school. She said, what do you think you want to do? I said, I think I want to go to medical school. And she said, well, then we'll get you into medical school. And I always remember that because it was a major turning point in my life. So I went to the University of Wisconsin Medical School, met my wife-to-be, who was in graduate school, who was from the San Francisco Bay Area, a little bit different than my background. And she had some experience in Stockton, California, did her teaching degree, where lo and behold, at San Joaquin General Hospital, year after year, there have been a number of UW medical students who did their rotating internship. I don't think we have those anymore. And so we drove out there looking for a practice location or an internship residency for me, looking at a number of other places in Washington State, Oregon, San Francisco area. So to short this up a little bit, I ended up going out to the San Joaquin General Hospital, a county hospital in Stockton, California, where there were no fellowships, and probably not many right hands and left hands there either. And a very busy emergency department, being a public hospital. If you want to spend the time, you can see just about anything you want any time of day or night. And we were short-staffed, so you could actually do moonlight. I did a lot of moonlighting right there in that hospital. In my last year of my internal medicine residency, 4 of us did moonlighting at area smaller hospitals on weekends and nights, which I don't think they permit you to do anymore. But I came out of that experience with a lot of skills and a lot of confidence, I suppose, as Dr. Walter indicated. And then it's where do I practice? I had a colleague of mine in internal medicine who was from San Francisco also. They went to a smaller town and we thought we wanted to practice together. We looked at about 10 communities in California, Northern California, and one of them, the administrator of the hospital, said, well, you can come to Sonoma, California, but you should know last year there were 5 hungry internists who started practice here. So we looked at a different area. So to make this short, you want to go to Paradise, California, sounds pretty nice. I want to go to Grass Valley. Meanwhile, a recruiter had contacted me and he mentioned a location. I didn't mention my medical school, probably turned me toward rural healthcare. Between my first and second year of medical school, I went to St. Croix Falls for a summer internship in family medicine. There were, I think, 5 family physicians, a general internist, and a pediatrician. And I would go to the operating room as part of that rotation with Dr. Olson several mornings a week and helping with surgical assisting. By the end of that summer, he looked up at me one day across the surgical table for an appendectomy. He said, this one's yours. He walked me through that appendectomy and he didn't touch the patient at any point in time. They probably wouldn't allow you to do that anymore. Likewise, in my last year of medical school, I went to Randsburg for a 2-month rotation. We're 30 below zero in January, my wife and I found. And for 2 months, I was treated as if I was the 4th member of a family practice team. Delivered a number of babies. They backed me up by telephone. They'd come in if I needed the help. Went into the emergency room at night. Went to the medicine cabinet that they have there to give people antibiotics, pain medicines, whatever. Again, they won't let you do that, I'm sure, anymore. But I had great training. So that was kind of my background, and one thing led to another. I decided to take the opportunity to come to Columbus, Wisconsin, and it's been a great opportunity for me, my family, and I've had a wonderful career here. Coming to an end, and I'm ready to look out here and look at these faces. None of you are old enough to be in medical school.
Thanks, you guys. So some of you have alluded to this a little bit already, but if we could take a moment to explain kind of what attracted you to rural practice, what was it about it, and why did you want to go there? And if you haven't talked about a little bit, what was your path to getting there?
I came to Baraboo because I wanted to broaden skill set. That's sort of where that came for me. When I started medical school, I thought I was going to practice. I thought I was going to be a missionary doctor and just like practice somewhere abroad. And things kind of shifted during medical school to make me think that maybe that wasn't the career path that was going to be mine. But I still wanted to, sort of be comfortable with any patient who could sort of walk in front of me. And that's sort of how I came to family medicine and how I came to rural medicine. And I also feel like I wanted to work in an area where I was needed and not just sort of another cog in the machine. And that was really appealing to me. And my husband, I met my husband during med school. He was in Oklahoma, I was in Virginia. There's a lot of story there. But he grew up on a ranch, and he moved to Virginia to be with me in the city, and then we lived in Madison for a year. And every step, sort of, we got more rural from Madison to Baraboo and to Dodgeville, and now we're out in the middle of nowhere outside of Dodgeville. And every step he's gotten happier, and so I've gotten happier as well. So that's been a big factor in things too. But it's been a really big factor.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town, actually, and then ended up moving into a city for high school. So I grew up seeing family practice doctors who did broad spectrum care. When I went to medical school, I wasn't really super interested in family medicine as a clinic-only experience. I saw a lot of referrals and things like that, and then when I did my rural rotation, it was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is so cool. And there were fewer learners, and I got to scrub it on a C-section, and I got to do chest tubes. I got to do all of the things that I was trained to do, or at least thought a doctor was supposed to be doing. And that was when it really opened my eyes at the time. And that's what really made me fall in love with this kind of model of providing care. I feel like really family docs in a rural setting get to practice at the top of their license much more than in a large academic center. In my experience as a learner when I was in medical school, now I'm sure that's different for different folks, but for me, that was just what made me fall in love with it. The independence, the broad spectrum care, and just, yeah, feeling like you make a difference in the lives of your community much more readily, and I just loved it. So,
I don't think your perception is all that accurate, because that's been my experience 15 years down the road from where you are. I grew up, like you, on a small farm here in Wisconsin, and I was used to growing up in the country, and that's where we lived, and that was normal, I guess you could say, and I enjoy that to this day. I like the peace, and I like the open spaces, and I like the opportunity to have neighbors. Maybe not too close, but at least I know that. And I like the community of people around me, and that's very enjoyable. And I think that the idea of practicing in a way that really does open the door to having a far more challenging practice in a good way, in a satisfying way, and also a much more diverse patient panel. Because it is true that years down the road, you still never know what's going to walk in the door or how it's going to present. And I have a brand new PA in our group that's been with us for 2 months, and so we're busy prepping her and helping her on her feet. And I think every week she's coming with a new and unusual case of something that we've not seen in 15 years of practice. And we keep asking where she finds these people. But it's keeping us on our toes, and I think that part is refreshing, without a doubt. The variety, the challenge, and the opportunity to do that.
I think I kind of ran the first two questions together quite a bit in terms of, what led me to more or less a rural practice, but obviously I think the growing up in the farm community, I knew farm people, and the independence of farmers. I think I was looking for an opportunity to, what turned out to be start my own business, and had no knowledge of how to do that, wasn't sure how to do that, but saw the possibilities. And coming here with trip to Columbus, actually the clinic building went through the old part of that. You didn't hear it on your tour, I told it on the other tour. That building was originally built with 8 individual solo practice suites. That was thought to be the way physicians would practice in this community. Just in preparing for that, I would just mention in California, the California Medical Association put on a meeting, I guess every year. And it was the most important meeting I probably ever attended, let alone any of the CME meetings I've attended many times since. But the title of that meeting was Establishing Yourself in Medical Practice. And 2 days of lectures on all kinds of topics, everything from hiring and firing and how to set up your telephone system and your billing system and whatnot. And it cost me $120. It's probably the most important $120 I ever spent in my life. So with that, I was able to come to Columbus with a fair amount of confidence, and with the support of the hospitals or the community, was able to develop a practice that has been very satisfying.
No, I can. Questions? So we don't keep on just not answering your questions?
So one question I was thinking of is, burnout is common among different, all doctors. What risk factors do you see more in the rural area versus the bigger area, or what things help you to avoid that?
Burnout's still common in rural areas, I think, and I don't know that there's good studies comparing like rural practice to less rural practice, but there was a study recently that came out that showed kind of the broader your scope of practice, the less burnout there is, and I think that's totally true because, because you're not doing the same thing every day, and like you spend a lot of time writing notes, but you also get to spend a lot of time doing cool procedures and really making a difference in the lives of people that are part of your community. Like I can't go to Walmart without seeing a patient or someone I work with. Like it's not possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that the type of burnout is different because the patient struggles are different. So for me, I was going to say something about that study too, about the broadness of spectrum being important for clinicians and how in a rural setting that's less of a factor. But with the problems of patients being different, you end up having different styles of emotional worry about your patient population. And so whereas in a city you might have concerns about one thing, in a rural town I find the lack of, there's certain lack of access or other issues or transportation issues or what have you that end up causing me to be worried or more stressed about my patients that I think are different, but I think it's just, that piece of it is just a different kind of worry or different kind of burnout.
I think it's a great question because burnout has been and remains a challenge, I think, in all of healthcare, and certainly for physicians and really for others around us. I don't know that burnout is worse in an urban versus a rural setting. I do think that the biggest risk factor I see for burnout across the board in medicine is when people try and go it alone. And I had a friend of mine out in healthcare asked me, and we were talking about it, and he said, how do you do it? He said, doesn't it bother you to always be on call or you never know when you can call in for delivery? And I say, well, if I did it myself, I couldn't do it because I would burn out. You'd never have any rest, or you'd never have that sense of relief or being able to take a break. But because I do this with a couple of partners who have gotten to be good friends and colleagues, I don't carry that burden myself. And because of that, I'm able to be available as much as I can be, as much as I want to be. And realistically, if I'm not out of town and one of my patients is in labor, I want to be there, and I'm going to get called. And I have the opportunity to sign out anytime that I want, as long as one of my colleagues is around. And the alternative, the converse, so that's equally true. And we're happy to carry that burden with each other. So I would say if you want to avoid burnout, don't try and go it alone. The other thought that I have that's a completely different answer is, what are the antidotes to burnout? And I think burnout is the negative, or we're looking at something through two lenses, is it black, is it white? Burnout's the negative word, so what's the positive word? And I don't know that we have the answer to that exactly, but I would contend that, among other things, engagement is one of the antidotes to burnout. If I enjoy what I do, if I'm engaged in what I do, if I find satisfaction in what I do, I'm far less likely to feel burnout, because you know what, EMRs aren't going away, and they don't make our practices easier, and I don't think they've ever been shown to make the quality of care that our patients receive any better either. But last I found, the bean counters and billers are not letting us get rid of it quite yet. So, and that's a very cynical statement, so you can do what you want with it. But and yes, I drove by the headquarters of Epic on the way here. It's bigger every time. One of my colleagues' kids count the number of cranes when they go there. We're on a low number in the last decade. It's been 2, the high number 6, I think. But anyway, my point in all that is there are things that none of us like about what we do. And if you were an accountant, if you worked for the city and did water quality or anything else that you did, there'd be things you didn't like about that job too. The key is, what do you like about what you do? Who are you doing it with? And if you don't like it, find something else, for crying out loud. Life's too short to waste on things we don't enjoy. So.
I'll make a brief comment. It reminds me of a patient. When you've been practicing 40 years, you have a lot of recollections of patient experiences. So I like your word about engagement, for sure. Probably 30 years ago, I had an opportunity to go to one of the nursing homes that I go to, and this patient came in. She came to the nursing home at age 99. The only reason she came because she had bad arthritis, and she just couldn't live alone anymore. Her mind was keen. I'd meet with her once a month, and we just basically had a little chat. It wasn't much to do with her medically. She wasn't even on any medications, maybe some Tylenol. And of course, at age 99, the calendar turned one day, and she turned 100. So the next time I visited her, like the journalist you read about, I said to her, I said, Mrs. Smith, what's the secret of turning to living to 100? And without batting an eye, she said, just be happy. And I thought that was kind of a flippant answer. And as I thought about it over the years, I actually have read some things about longevity. People that have a very positive attitude toward life and seem to be able to roll the punches, have acceptance, and maybe engagement, do very well. But I think it's also good advice. You've got to listen to your needs and desires and whoever else is in your life, and find that balance for you. I know there are physicians, one in this community who's no longer with us. I think he took 5 or 6 days of vacation in a 40-year career. That was his life. Every morning and every night he was here making rounds. And I think he was a happy man. I think his family turned out all right too. But that's very unusual, very unique. And the world has changed. There's so many other opportunities and things to do, and find that balance for each of you. Something you'll figure out as you go along.
Okay. Other questions?
So working in rural medicine, there are specific health challenges that are engage your communities in ways outside your regular clinical practice?
So I'm an emergency physician. We have a tendency kind of be like the dark shadows that move in the night. I'll kind of, the example that I can use, and they're going to have much better examples, is one of the things that we've done in terms of our group has been very big proponents on opiate prescribing and how we're going to engage the community in that. So we've done some things trying to be very vocal in the community about and upfront, prospective about how we're going to prescribe and how much, attempting to get in front of the whole opiate epidemic crisis issue. And I think the community has received it very well. At least they didn't grumble too much when they come to the ED, because we've been doing it now for about 2 years, and we've tried to be very engaging with it and educational. And so trying to get extending us a little bit further just the ED walls. So that's something that we've done.
So one of the questions that we might approach at some point here was about leadership opportunities, and I feel like this sort of dovetails with that because at least in our critical access hospital setting, there's not a leadership active because there are lots of people doing lots of work, but there's only so many people, and so you're the new person, and everyone says, oh, would you like to be on these 5 committees? And I hear that you're interested in substance abuse treatment, and also you should help with these other things. And so there's no lack of opportunities to be involved, and I find it really refreshing, to sort of take an afternoon away from clinic. I got involved. Iowa County has a task force for substance use and mental health and behavior that involves folks from the county health and human services office and school counselors. It's just a really nice cross section of everyone who can kind of be impacted by that and all working together to make things better. And so that's been kind of a cool aspect. And actually one of the coolest things is we have a drug court as well, so working towards less punitive treatment and more restorative treatment for folks, and they're always looking for medical input on things. And I don't know how much I actually contribute, but I really enjoy being a part of it. But there's you come and you express any small degree of interest, and you will immediately be sucked into about a half dozen things.
Yeah, it's my experience too. So as part of residency, we have a community health portion of that, in which we join various committees at the city, which include things like nurse-family partnerships, which I also have as a part of my clinic practice, where any patient I have who is at certain high risks and is also pregnant, we have connections with nurses in the community who see them outside of clinic time, and we're texting each other and talking about them and so forth. But also just engaging in various measures at the community level. So that's kind of the role in our residency program.
I think one of the maybe more organic ways that it happens as well is just living your life. And that means the activities that my kids are in and the things we do as a family, and whether it's the fact that the kids run across country, and if I go to a meeting, I'm interacting with people all the time, and just you'd be amazed how many conversations happen, the oh by the ways, and some people dread it. Some people say, no, I want to be able to end my quote-unquote shift and not be asked a medical question until I clock in again. And you can probably define that boundary in rural practice, but you're going to work at it. And I far enjoy the oh by the ways and the things that come up. And there's times when you say, you know what, that's not appropriate to do here at church. Why don't we have that? I don't really want to see that lesion here, sorry. or whatever. But and I say that tongue in cheek. It's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, most of the time there's simple questions. And most people actually apologize. I mean, they say, I'm sorry for taking your time, or maybe I shouldn't ask this question. And I say, you know what, you're my plumber. If I have a question, I'm not afraid to ask you when I see you socially, hey, what's wrong with this or that, or that thing about my drain? Why shouldn't you do the same thing to me? And so on and so forth. But I just think that as we engage in the things that we are doing as individuals, and we're doing with our friends, we're doing with our families, there's countless opportunities to engage in our communities. And that's how you find out about the needs, and you also find out about the positives. I enjoy biking, and they just finished a very nice trail through Platteville and the communities near me, and the bike shop where I get my bike fixed and buy bikes for my kids every time they grow a few inches, and I think I'm keeping Tim in business at that bike shop, but nevertheless, I love going in there, and he says, hey, we're building a trail, if we'll donate some money toward that trail, so, there's always those opportunities to engage and be part of it, and you tell people about it, you work together.
If I understand the question correctly about, engage in other aspects of the community, and I think every community, will give those opportunities, and certainly smaller communities. It does tie into the last question about leadership, which I feel is one of my passions and one of those things that is very important in my career. I personally been very active in a church community, and at one time I ran for the school board of this community, so I had the opportunity to serve on the school board for a term. I won't say it was the most positive experience, because I thought things would happen much faster there, and I wasn't so used to union negotiations and budgets and trying to figure out where the money's going to come from, all those kind of things, but the opportunity was there. I'm taking some of my experiences out of the community. I had an opportunity to be part of an organization called the Wisconsin Rural Leadership Program, now known as Leadership Wisconsin, which actually took me to 3 different countries over time, the former Soviet Union. I spent some time with the People-to-People program, and I was able to do that. There's something called the Wisconsin Rural Partners. They were very instrumental in helping me do some medical political activities and shifting. I was talking to Dr. Walter earlier back in the mid-1990s. Shifting in this state, the Medicare rules, there were at one time 11 different Medicare payment localities, of which Columbia County was among the lowest in the state. And the federal government said if they would have overwhelming support by physicians in the state, they would call it a single payment locality, but it had to be budget neutral. So I won't tell you the whole story. I told Dr. Walter a little bit more about that, but there's those kind of opportunities to engage in the community in so many other ways if you have that interest. And it might be coaching on the soccer team, it might be those other kind of things where there's, if you want to get involved in service organizations, most communities probably have a Lions Club, a Rotary, Kiwanis, Odd Fellows, you name it. There's many opportunities. And get to know other people in the community who aren't necessarily your patients or your colleagues that you work with every day.
It's not my particular interest, but a lot of folks who are interested in more sports medicine type areas end up reaching out to the high schools in terms of their sports teams and volunteering in that environment. And then also my intern partner does a lot of outreach at the high school locally related to STI, careers in healthcare, like things that the high schoolers might be interested in terms of their health and also like their futures and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of opportunities for these things. It really just depends on your interest. But I guess, if there's more to your, there's a specific area that you're interested in. Let us know. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll try to phrase what I'm trying to ask, so it's understandable, but I'm interested in hearing how you talk a lot about community opportunities and kind of a broad scope, spectrum of progress that you can go into, and it seems like there's so many things you can go into. Can you speak a little bit about the feasibility of kind of crafting your own practice and finding a team that you want to work with and a place that you enjoy doing what you like? It's a really broad question. I'm sorry if I didn't get it.
Can you clarify if you mean within a training environment or outside of practice?
Both. How do you go about, picking the things that make you feel engaged? Do you feel ever burdened down by systems, or
never?
How is it a different health system? Are you able to run practice?
So that's a great question. Some of this comes down to self-awareness and being aware of what makes you excited and engaged, or having someone in your life who can say, man, that day that I came home from X, Y, or Z was the time that you looked super excited or really happy, or just being aware of where your engagement is in that. So when I was on my rural rotation as a medical student, I remember having the being really excited by walking someone from the clinic to the hospital, putting them in a hospital bed, doing the work of it. You know, like there were pieces of that where I was just like, wow, this is so great. I get to do this thing. And so now I know that some of that hospital practice is something that engages me. So there's a little bit of that introspective selfness of it. There's also an element of expanding that message to your peers and saying like, man, this is one thing that I really want to do. So in Baraboo in particular, we have a lot of flexibility in terms of the kinds of experiences that we can seek out. So we have a specialty clinic next door, and we're the only learners, so we get to walk over to whichever specialist we want to work with for the day and say, I really want more of this experience. I want to learn more about putting in pessary. And that's why is that the first thing that came to my head? I don't know. But in any case, you have a lot of flexibility, and in a rural environment, at least in Baraboo, you have a lot of agency in terms of choosing what providers you work with, and what exposures you try and give yourself. There's an element of chance here where it's like you may not, with any environment, you may not have a lot of exposure to one thing, and then you'll learn more about it, and then as time goes by, you just have to start telling everybody that this is the thing you want to do, this is the experience you want to have, and going after it in that way, and you have to have a lot of self-efficacy in that way to really go after, I really want C-sections, I really want to do colonoscopies, I really want to do this clinic thing that I want to do, I really want to learn derm procedures, whatever it is. And then over time, people will start to refer to you as the person who does X, Y, or Z. And at least that's my experience. Now I'm not in practice, so I'm going to pass it to someone who can talk.
I might take a little bit more of the, I think I'm trying to answer the first part of your question, and take more of the organizational answer. And that's, I think, if I'm going to rephrase your question, that is, seeking opportunities that allow you to explore things that you may be interested in, and how do you do that within different health systems or seek those opportunities. I think firstly, and if there's anybody from Columbus here that may want to chime in on this, a lot of smaller hospitals or rural hospitals are still single system, meaning that they're not part of a larger healthcare system. So in that, you might have less of being pigeonholed into something, but also remember that sometimes being small allows some more flexibility. And when I say that, so again, as kind of the organizational view, so at Divine Savior where I'm at, I'm also the chief medical officer, so I get to kind of oversee all the medical practices. And so when I'm hiring people and they're coming in, they might say, hey, I'd really like to do this. And I'm like, okay. And first question is, and it's not so much like, well, that may be financially feasible for the organization. It's more like, does our community need that? Because that's always ultimately, because we're a faith-based organization, we're sponsored by the Sisters of the Divine Savior. So it's like that their overarching mission is, so you have to look at mission, vision, and values of that organization and say, okay, does that fit? Does that fit my own philosophy and things like that? And then if you're like that, it's like, what does the community need? And then also, as the chief medical officer, one of my primary goals in life is to, A, prevent burnout of the physicians. And that goes into kind of what you're saying is what gives me that breadth of experience and things I'm excited about. And so I always tell all the physicians when I'm meeting with them, I'm like, what can I do to make your practice more professionally and personally fulfilling? And then I say, okay, anyway, I would like to do this. And I'm like, okay, how can we fit that into the community needs or whatever it may be? And I'll use the example being, we have our most recent family practice physician that started. She trained in Des Moines, she's the doctor of osteopathy, and she did advanced training in OMT. Now, I trained at MCW, I have no idea what OMT is. I've never had it done to me, I don't even know what it looks like. No idea. But she's like, I'd like to really do this. I'm like, cool. How can it help our patients? She's like, I can do this and this and this. I get her away from opiates. I'm like, cool. And she is probably one of the hardest physicians to get into right now because it is out in the community that she is able to do things that then people don't have to rely on medications and things like that. And so I think that when you're looking for that job or even residency, start off with like looking at the hospital. First, is it the size you want? Does it offer some of the experiences that you're interested in? What are its mission, vision, and values? And then are those consistent with how you interpret what your practice would be like? And then kind of like look at what other physicians are doing, and then talk to them, just ask them, hey, I'm really interested in acupuncture. Do you think I can do that? Yeah. Or they might go, no, that doesn't fit in with anything that we believe in. And then you're like, okay, well, I have to cross that place off and let's go practicing that. Because really, again, the ultimate thing is for you to be happy so that you don't burn out. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
I think too, geography and like regional culture has a big role in it. So like I went to med school on the East Coast, and I was like, I don't think I want to even look at family medicine residences here because it wasn't something that was respected. There were like so few people who had anything close to the scope that I wanted. And I said to myself when I moved out to the Midwest was that, you know, maybe someday, like once I have my feet under me and I'm confident in what I'm doing, I can go back and sort of fight for that if that's something that becomes a priority for me. But I didn't feel like I wanted to blaze my way. And I felt like in Wisconsin, and especially in rural Wisconsin, you can kind of, you know, go to the place that has the needs that you want to meet. You know, you can, like, it's more of a, more of a puzzle piece that's kind of coming together as opposed to like, you will do this one thing and you'll be happy about it. And then I think that's like, if you look at different spots, you know, especially like family doctor doing C-sections, there's just certain places that's not going to be feasible, or you're going to have to really like go tell a whole bunch of people off and really, you know, prove your worth there. And I'm not a person who's particularly assertive about that, and so I wanted to be in a place that no one was going to be sort of questioning me, and I wouldn't have to stand up for myself quite in that way.
I think Dr. Walters brought up some really good points, and one of them is small hospitals are far more nimble than big systems. My guess is that most of you don't even realize that there are still independent practices left in the world, much less in our state. But there's a few of us who are doing very well, and we're alive and well, we're thriving, we like it. And so whether when you're looking for rotations, if you want to see if something is appealing to you, go spend a month somewhere where they do that, whether it's at a clinic, a hospital, or a setting. I mean, the big systems do not view, in general, broad strokes, big systems do not view physicians as individuals. They view physicians as resources. They're cogs in the machine. And again, don't go too far with that, but just work with me for a minute. So if you're trying to say what's something that's good for me, what's something that's appealing to me that I would enjoy, you can't do that when there's 100 other people trying to do the same thing or answer the same question. And so the nimbleness, the flexibility, the receptiveness of smaller settings, be they smaller practices, smaller hospitals, smaller groups, what have you, far more flexible. I think that affords greater opportunities to do that. And then, you know, the idea is if you identify something that you want to do, or if you say, no, I don't want to do that, it helps narrow that focus down a bit. The other comment I want to make is that for all of you, this is a buyer's market, okay? There's far more residency positions in many settings, especially if you're interested in primary care or in a rural setting, than people that take them. There's far more jobs than there are people to fill them. And so don't feel like you have to be 1 year in residency and sign a contract for 2 years or 3 years from now for where you're going to go to work, because you're going to miss out on the one good opportunity that's out there. It's not true. There's dozens of good opportunities out there for every one of us and for every one of you. And so if you're able to not feel the pressure or the urgency or what have you, you know, and you can say to me, well, gosh, you don't know how much my loans are, and I got to have a job that's going to pay them off. Well, you know what? Those jobs are still there. And there's going to be even more of them 5 years, 10 years, 2 years from now than there are right now. So don't feel pressured into doing something you don't enjoy or settling. You don't have to settle. I mean, we really are. It's a great season to be looking for careers in healthcare because there's more supply than there are people to fill those positions. So be choosy.
Is with those who have some type of rural interest, what steps would you suggest them to take to move forward to find out, is this something I want in the future? Is it just a rotation? We know that that's a good way to do it, is to go train there, spend some time. Are there other ideas that you have to share that could foster that or help someone decide if it's right for them?
If you go to UW, I would recommend looking at the WARM program, if you don't already know about it. And then using those opportunities within the WARM program. For example, and one thing I'm going to say, hopefully not to cause too much controversy, but keep your, I don't know what year are most people, first or second? Keep your ideas about what specialty you want to go into pretty broad still, and don't think that you can't go practice in a rural environment based on your specialty. Orthopedics, general surgery, emergency medicine, family practice, internal medicine. I mean, you can pretty much practice anything in a rural setting. Now, there's a few things, okay. If you want to be a neurosurgeon, you might have a little bit of a problem. Not because we don't want it, but I bet you most smaller hospitals can't afford it. So anyways, so there's the WARM program, but then seek out the opportunities regardless of, and if you're starting to go into general surgery, seek out the general surgery opportunities. I mentored a young lady that was at UW. She was in the WARM program and went into emergency medicine. All of her rotations in emergency medicine she did at rural sites. So she was in Boston, she was in a couple other places. I think she did one up at Howard Young, stuff like that. And so do that. Now, okay, we didn't have that at any kind of rural, we didn't have really much at MCW back in 1991 to 95. So there was no like rural track. I don't know if they have it now. Do they?
Regional campuses.
Regional campuses.
Rural interest group.
Okay. So get involved with those things and see what other people have done. But more importantly, is if there's something you want to do, and this is true at UW too, seek it out. Like say you have a family member that practices in Hayward, or you're from Ladysmith or something, and you want to go work there and there's no relationship with the medical school, make it. It'll happen. It's easy enough to do. They want you, they'll be tickled pink to have you come up there. And you might get, like, the first person at the medical school might go, like, what are you talking about? But after that, they'll be like, okay, fine. And as long as there's a doc to sponsor you and then fill out the evaluation, you're fine. But so go do those things. And enjoy those experiences. Now it's probably going to be a little harder in the third year. I don't know how easy it would be.
It's actually really easy. I mean, we have third-year medical students that come spend a month for their clerkship from MCW. A couple of you, in fact, David over here was with us last year. And not only that comes and spends a month with us, plans to do family medicine or even work rurally. One young lady went on to be a pathologist, and so I suppose you can do that in a rural area because people die rural and urban. But I mean, what can I say? But in all seriousness, though, I think you're exactly right. Make it happen. I mean, we host residents, we host students, and we had one young man this summer that spent a week with us that he couldn't get into whatever it was he wanted to do this summer, so he said, I'm going to do a survey and try and find a way to get out and get some experience. And I think he spent most of his summer fly fishing, but he did come and spend a week with me at the clinic, and he had a great time. And designed a survey, got it approved, and so, yeah, I mean, talk to the people that set up this meeting. Come talk to one of us at this table after the meeting. If you want to come spend a day, if you want to have a phone conversation, if you want to spend a week, if you want to spend a month. I mean, there are, and I know you're thinking, I can't do that in my schedule, I have to study all this other stuff. There are times built into your schedule. You still get a summer break, I think, like the first and second year, don't you? Maybe. Well, that's because you guys are aggressive. I like that. But in all seriousness, come check it out. I mean, you can learn a ton about what you like or don't like or what you might like. Even in a day's time, you're going to have a great conversation. So the opportunities are there, if they're not, to make them happen.
I will say one thing, and I'll speak from an emergency medicine's perspective on this, and if you're going into a particular specialty, and you're kind of getting into that fourth year, know the requirements of how to get into a residency for your specialty, because if you try to go do them all, like they call them audition rotations, and you try to go do them in a rural environment, or wherever, it doesn't have to be rural, but they don't fulfill the requirements of getting into that residency, be cognizant of that. And I'll use for the example, emergency medicine, it's very specific. You have to do rotations at places that have residencies because you have what's called a standardized letter of recommendation. People don't even look at letters of recommendation from any other type of venue. And so it's really specific. So yeah, come rotate at Divine Savior with me. Do it first up, and I'll get you polished, ready to go, so you're ready to knock it out of the park for your audition rotations. That's the kind of what I would recommend. And it's probably, and I don't know how family practice is or internal medicine, but just be really aware as you progress through your medical school career of the requirements so that you're checking those boxes, but also then checking the boxes of the experiences that you want.
Other questions for her?
So one of the things that I didn't really realize before starting medical school, but has really got me excited now, is just how much of a community physicians really are, and kind of the collegiality of knowing other physicians and being able to interact and bounce ideas off of people, that sort of thing. So as a physician in a rural place where you're not necessarily in a big city with hundreds of other doctors, do you have ways of staying connected with other physicians throughout the state and get involved in those sorts of things to stay connected to, just kind of the community of physicians?
I may start with that one and then I'll pass it down. So there's your state medical society, there's your county medical society that are great networks to get involved with. And then I think each specialty probably has like a state chapter to be involved with, and you can bounce things off of people, and just go to like the meetings and things like that. And then you get involved at the national level if you want. I think that you'll find though, that's one of the nice things about being in a smaller community, a smaller hospital, is it's very kind of family feel. And it's actually kind of nice too, especially from an emergency physician perspective. So this doesn't answer your question directly, but going back to that community feeling, not feeling like alone. I think we have 40 or 30 some physicians, and it's kind of a tight-knit community. I know all of them, they all know me, even though I'm an emergency physician. And when I was at UW, I didn't know anybody. I mean, I knew the guys I worked with and stuff like that, but and so there's a lot more opportunity to be impersonal on that level, but at a smaller community, it's harder to be like that. You got to kind of get along, or else it's really a small pond if you don't like each other. And then probably different groups, and I'm sure they can all talk to this and my other panel members. We try to do things for like Burnout socially, so that we get outside the hospital and do activities. We kind of have a book club. We have it in the ED. We're going to try to expand it out to the rest of the docs in the hospital. We're going to read Dope Sick, if anybody's heard of it. And it's about the opiate epidemic. So there's ways to, I think that you will feel more of a family than you probably anticipated.
I think I'm just old enough that I still like meeting with people in person as opposed to via social media or what have you. But the opportunities are there, thanks to the internet and thanks to social media and everything else like that. That you don't have to be neighbors to interact with someone. If you are, he's absolutely right. In our community, we've got our physicians in our group, and we get along well, and we've recruited folks to join our group that we think will fit in well, and they have. And in our larger group of physicians in our community, there's about a dozen docs in our community, and we probably, would we all hang out socially and like exactly the same thing? No. Can we all get along well enough to function together and kind of find those niche areas that people want to do things with? Absolutely. And we're committed to a few things in common, and that's a very unifying experience for us. And it's one of those things where you make it work because it's a value to everybody involved. It's a value to me to have other physicians around me in our community that are willing to work hard, that are willing to take care of patients, and that that want to be there for the long haul, so to speak, and build those kind of relationships. And because we all agree that way. The thing we hear again and again from the nurses in our hospital, for example, is that you doctors don't even work together at the clinic. We have two different clinic groups, and yet you work together so well here in the hospital. And how do you do that? It's like, well, we're both committed to the same thing, which is we're going to take care of each other and take care of our patients, and that happens. And at a state level, absolutely, there are specialty organizations. And as a family physician, Wisconsin has a chapter, the Wisconsin Academy of Family Physicians. I've been a part of that the whole time I've been in practice, and there's leadership development opportunities. There's opportunities to go to meetings, to work with each other. just have fun too, and I think that's important, so I think it's very doable.
Some of the comments I think are very good have already been answered here. For me, it isn't just the positions, as I alluded before. I think I'm not best friends with every position in this community. We don't go out for Friday night fish fries together. We don't golf together because I don't golf at all. Things like that. I have, for myself, I've gone through the physician's direction. I was very active in the medical society in the past, less so now. I got very involved with the Wisconsin Society of Internal Medicine, which is now just the ACP. Got on board, the board of directors of both of those and others, usually with physicians. Back in the era of the start of the managed care entities with insurance in the 1980s, this hospital, among other rural hospitals in the state, was very active in developing the then HMO of Wisconsin, which eventually became Unity. So they were looking for positions to be on the board, and I was able to meet physicians from all over South Central Wisconsin to be part of that. So there's many ways to be involved in it. That's not for everybody. Some people are even very contentious practicing within their organization and the level of involvement they want. But I tell you, if you show up for meetings and you like to go to meetings, they'll find something for you to do.
It's like committees, I think.
I guess, just to give a resident perspective, it's not so much tailored into the community as a whole in practice, but in terms of a resident, I was nervous about going into residency without having enough social contacts or enough awareness of what's happening outside of my training here. One of the benefits of the program that I trained in is that we spend our first year in the larger hospital systems, and so I have a really great network of friends here, and then I also get to know the specialists who round within this environment and end up in Baraboo. And so there's a lot of opportunities for connection. I still have really close friends there and in all sorts of places, and you kind of start to reach out into all of these areas slowly over time. So in addition to these areas, depending on where you train, you have a lot of opportunities to get to know people outside of that one place that you train, and it ends up working out really well.
All right, well, keeping track of the time here, I want to say a big thank you to our panel for sharing your insights and knowledge and answering these questions and taking time out of your Saturday to share with the students here. So we can give them a round of applause.